When we began our journey through Science of Reading, one of the first pieces that we identified was we needed to completely revamp our previous assessment systems. We were under a system that used leveling of students, so leveling from A to Z, with running records administered probably anywhere from 3 to 4 times a year. What we found was that assessment system was very vague in terms of what skills students needed to be a proficient reader through each of the levels. So as we embarked in new knowledge and new learning, we had a very strong debate amongst principals. Do we keep the old assessment system and layer on the new assessment system, or do we say goodbye to the old ways and adopt the new ways? We buried the old leveling assessment system in our school and across the district, and we embarked on a new assessment system that really was diagnostic, drilling down to each of the reading areas that a child needs to develop, beginning in kindergarten with letters and letter sounds, phonemic awareness, utilizing the Heggerty assessment tool, a decoding inventory that we introduced once students have learned 19 letter sounds, and that goes from a single syllable assessment to a multisyllabic assessment. And then in the middle of the year of first grade, we add on an oral reading fluency measure, and then as well as a spelling inventory to determine students' ability to encode the words as they're decoding them. So that comprehensive assessment system allowed teachers to identify specific skill areas that a child would need to develop to become a proficient reader. When we administer the diagnostic assessments, our goal was to provide every student with small group instruction every day in a 6-to-1 ratio.
If you think back 2.5 years ago, when we were first starting this, it was a shock to everybody's system. And in a lot of ways for teachers, it was throwing out and trying to rewire their brain for how they were thinking about instruction, which is a lot. So one of the things that we felt we could do to assist in some of the lift of this work was creating some of these data systems with test administration, analyzing the data, take that off their plate to be more efficient so that they're not spending their time on clerical data entry work, that they're spending their time on planning the instruction. We created a system where if teachers have their computer in front of them while they're assessing, in essence, they are collecting the data. It is automatically feeding into kind of a master spreadsheet for us so that we then are getting real-time data collection. We're able to watch it come in as they are assessing, and not just our homeroom teachers. We have a team of teachers who are collecting the data, and we can then know very quickly who still needs to be assessed, who needs to have additional assessments because of how they performed on specific assessments, and then from there take that and feed it into a couple of different places. So one, being able to look at a summary for grade level wide to be able to create those small groups of students with similar needs, and then also to be able to feed that into reports for parents. So instead of having teachers hand type in or hand write in all of the data individually for every student, it's automatically populating into a report so that then they can just have those printed and ready for them, ultimately saving some of that time.
One thing that we do between our big administrations, which are 3 times a year, we do a checkpoint for oral reading fluency, and we do that in first, second, and third grade. It's just a great indicator for a student growth, and then based on that, which we do in March and October, we will do some quick shuffles, or maybe sometimes we need to dig a little bit deeper and look at some other assessments for those students, and that's a great way that we're able to think holistically across the grade levels, another way that we're getting another assessment point. We also do progress monitoring, or monitoring progress during our small groups. We use the Cox Campus tool so that teachers, if they've been teaching OR for a week, they can do a quick assessment that'll include encoding, decoding, and then like a dictation sentence. And then teachers will have a really good sense of are my students ready to move on? Are they ready to move on, but we still need to keep touching back on it? And so we do have some ways that our teachers input that data digitally for us that we can do some tracking. It's also great because we can generate reports for those students for MTSS PTS or parent conferences. The data that we've been able to get from the assessments that we're giving, first it was a little bit overwhelming. There's so much information, and there's a couple different lenses, like the admin, the way that we look at data, the way that the teachers look at data, and then of course the way that the parents look at data. With the systems that we put in place, we were able to generate several different types of reports. You might have just your small group report, you might have your whole class report, and then we also had one that we could generate for parents. Now, obviously, not only were teachers having to make a shift in what they knew about assessments and what they could do with it, but we also had to teach that to parents as well. And so I think that just like the teachers, they were able to make that shift pretty quickly because it was so much more clear. Instead of a level that, okay, that's roughly middle of the grade level, you were able to let parents know exactly what the students were working on and what their next steps were in a continuum. So it just was much more tangible for teachers and for parents to understand. And so that was a pretty, I won't say easy shift, but it was a shift that it worked well for us. There's a couple different things that we did to support teachers with the data that they were receiving. When we first started, we actually would assign an admin to a teacher, and we did just a kind of a team planning where we would look at their data with them and really identify the needs of the students. Because you're looking at so many different assessments, it could be easy to overlook one area and focus just on one, and you want to look at that comprehensive view. So that was one way that was really supportive for teachers as they were starting out. Now, as they've gotten more confident with the data, we don't have to do that level of support, but that was definitely something that was beneficial for our teachers. For conferences, in terms of preparing teachers to then turn around and share that information with others, such as their parents. We did some mock conferences, so we would prepare the reports for the teachers and then do just kind of a mock conversation as if they were working with a parent, just so that they could feel confident in explaining it, because every different assessment has a different focus, and having that opportunity to do that really helped them feel more confident walking into conferences.
We realized that it would be beneficial to have an at-a-glance guide for parents, and so we created a guide that looked like it had the report on it, and we highlighted each area and gave a description of exactly what kind of information those numbers were giving, and then also the targets for the grade level at different points in the year, so that they could then, they're looking at it, see, okay, if this is my student's oral reading fluency, they are on track with what the grade level target is, or they're above, where the target is for that grade level. We found that being able to send that home with parents was beneficial, because at any given conference, you're just sitting there saying, yes, okay, I get it. But then when you take it home and you have time to really digest that information and take a minute to really look at it, that's when some of those questions arise. And that was just helpful for the parents to have. And also, especially as we were getting started, for teachers to be able to have that verbiage of explaining the assessment as well.
Dr. Wagner and I typically in January will do a lunch and learn. So parents are invited to bring their reports with them, and we will go through each of the different assessments and different targets for each of the grade levels, and that's been helpful for parents as well.
I also think that it serves to keep instructional goals transparent across teachers and families. So oftentimes families are going to fully trust the school and trust that the school is going to do what's in the best interest of the child, but the parent and the family doesn't know what that instructional goal may be. So whereas they think their child may be doing well and the work that's coming home looks like it could be on par, there's really no clear-cut expectation for what that instructional goal is at the grade level. So it creates a level of transparency between teacher, student data, and family as a very clear, yes, your child's on track with their reading, or no, your child is not, and here's what we're going to do about it.